everybody, AP Goodman here, and this week on Saturday Spotlight, I have the ever so talented Kristin Wolf with us today. Hi Kristin, how are you?
I'm doing really well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. So, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that you kind of specialize in the genre of Regency romance. Is that right?
That is correct. It's something I've been obsessed with since I was about 14 years old, and it's become a real passion of mine, although I do like contemporary romance as well, and hopefully we'll dive into writing that in the future.
That's awesome. I know my first introduction to that type of story wasn't even a book, I'm ashamed to admit, but was that popular Bridgerton TV show, right?
Yes,
And so was
yes,
that kind of around,
Bridgerton.
yeah, is that around the same time period?
No, actually, well, yes. In terms of the story, yes, it takes place in the Regency era, which was when King George III was mentally ill, and he needed his son to kind of step in and rule as the regent. And at the time, it was just an age of refinery and people. Society became a really big focal point in the public eye, and it's become really interesting to write about and focus on. And I find myself probably mentally living in the Regency era more than I even do in our modern era, which is kind of crazy, I imagine. But
I love that. So what kind of drew you there? You said that you've been, really into that time period since you were a teenager. What was the first, spark that ignited for you and started you down this path?
It's actually funny that you mentioned that your exposure to the Regency era was Bridgerton, at the TV show, because for me, we used to rent movies every week back in the day when that was a thing, and
Blockbuster, right? Family Video.
Oh yeah, Family Video was our go-to place, and I really liked rom-coms, and I picked up Bridget Jones's Diary, which is a modern contemporary romantic comedy, but it's based on Pride and Prejudice. And I recognized that it was based on Pride and Prejudice as I was watching it because of the old PBS show Wishbone, which was a dog that dived into books and he explored classical stories and stuff, and I recognized the Darcy character specifically. And so I was like, I'm going to see what that original book was all about. And so I picked up Pride and Prejudice at the age of 14, and I fell in love with it, and I have not turned back since.
That is a classic Jane Austen, but that's a hard read, especially at 14, right? Yeah. That's usually your AP English, like junior, senior year, your summer assignment.
Yeah, but I was always kind of, when I was a kid, I was like, I'm going to read Shakespeare, and I would read it, and I wouldn't understand about, I would say half of what I was reading. But I still was like, I'm determined to get this, and so I would just absorb it, and then a year later I'd try it again, and that's just the way I am. I like to reread. And every time I reread something that's a little over my head, I pick up a little bit more until it just becomes part of who I am.
I think that's so cool because I think a lot of readers, will say, especially about their favorite books, like, oh, I wish I could relive reading it for the first time, right? And you and your method, you kind of get to do that. Like you'll know, some of the backbone, if you will, but then there's still new unveils for you and new, twists, turns, components.
Oh yeah, and it's and I do that with film too. I like to, my favorite movies I like to rewatch because there's always some detail that you miss, no matter how hard you watch it. Like one of my favorite movies of all time is When Harry Met Sally. And I've seen it 1,000 times. It came out in, 1989 or something like that. I've seen it 1,000 times. And I still, every now and then I'll catch a new detail that I didn't notice the first time. And it's the same way with books. And it's weird that's the case, because the books are printed on the page. You should be able to catch every detail, but you don't. And it's really interesting to go back through, read between the lines, catch little nuances that you didn't see there before. And I think that's part of what I love about Regency romance as well, because it feels like there is a lot of nuance and there is a lot of, play that you don't see in a modern story.
Yeah, I could totally see that. And I think to your point, depending what, mood or emotion we're in and just what we're going through in life, that could also lend us to picking up different things, right?
Yeah.
Like if maybe we're relating to someone who isn't the main character more that day, and so we're a little bit more in tune of like, oh, they said this in chapter 5 and now it's chapter 10, and like, oh, I kind of get this now. Like, I'm kind of there too. Like, I would have responded the same way. Whereas, maybe a different day you were vibing with the main character, and so your attention was more on that than, a side character.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and that's a really good point, too, because the author always pushes, obviously, the main character's agenda. Like, you want to be able to understand the main character, but, like, speaking of Jane Austen, when I read Emma, I don't often see myself through Emma's eyes. I'm always looking toward her best friend, Harriet, who she's kind of manipulating to, to go after this one guy. Oh, no, go after this other guy. And I always feel for Harriet because I always felt like I was a Harriet. So,
sure.
And yeah, you're absolutely right. But every now and then I'll read it, or I'll watch an adaptation of Emma, and I'll be like, oh, I kind of understand Emma just a little bit, and just new perspectives every time. Even though they're classic stories and I know them like the back of my hand, being able to kind of look at it a little differently every time is definitely really fun, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, it's what makes it all timeless, right? Those stories, right? I mean, of course, Jane Austen is peak perfection for her time period, but the Regency era at large, it's just kind of timeless and something that happened so long ago, but the retellings are always so interesting. They're captivating at any age, any time period, and really draws people in. So with that in mind, we've talked that you write Regency romance, but tell us a bit more about that. How many books do you have? What's their title?
Yeah, I actually have 2 books, and I do have copies here that I can show you. The first that I wrote was called Secret of the Season. It is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. It is my debut novel, and I absolutely, it's a passion project of mine because it's in part, feels like it's mine and my husband's story just a little bit. Not in some respects, but in other respects. I can see him in my main male character, and I definitely see me in my main female character. So if you want to read something that's highly personal, check out Secret of the Season. And then my second book, which I just published in September, is called The Dowager and the Detective. It is a direct sequel of the first one, but it's a little bit different in almost genre because it's also a mystery. The first one was not a mystery. It's just a straightforward love story, but this one is a love story and a mystery, and it was 100% one of the funnest things I've ever worked on, and I definitely plan to do a spin-off series of The Dowager and the Detective. And right now I'm working on a Christmas, another genre, different genre, but, oh, I saw your dog.
Yeah, this is my dog. Sorry. He's going to crash your interview. His name is Fluffer.
That's Fluffers?
Yeah.
That is the best name ever.
The full name is Fluffernutter, but that's too many syllables when you're yelling at them when they're being naughty. All right, so he's just going to join us. You're going to have a guest cameo.
That's okay. I welcome readers of all species. So
there we go. Perfect. He's watched Bridgerton with me, right? We've cuddled. He gets it.
Nice.
So you're working on a Christmas story.
Yes, yes, but it is also Regency. It is also a sequel to the first two. It's a little different in tone. It's not going to be ready in time for Christmas, but it will be ready for next Christmas. And it focuses on the character I've heard is everybody's favorite character from the first two books. So I'm hoping people will be really happy to see her end up happy. So
that's awesome. I love how you're expanding your universe. Because, you
yes.
mentioned how, you relate so personally to the first book. It sounds like the second book has the same characters, but maybe not the same main character. Is that a good interpretation?
Yes, that is correct. And in fact, I kind of made a little bit of a bold choice with the second one because I think people were expecting me to focus on the young characters, but I decided that the mother of the main male character from the first book deserved a happy ending because she had had a miserable life. Mm-hmm. And so I let her have a middle-aged romance in the second one, and it was just so much fun.
I love that. So for people who aren't familiar with the term dowager, are you able to kind of give a brief synopsis of what that word means?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A dowager is basically the widow of somebody with a title in England. So she used to be the Countess of Ashford. Her husband was the Earl of Ashford, but then her husband passed away, so she became the Dowager Countess of Ashford. And so until she gets married, and then I think she relinquishes her title. So,
I mean, that makes sense, but for good reason, right? It's one of the few times where giving up your title is probably for the better.
Oh, yeah, because, I mean, what would her husband be then, right? The Dowager husband of the Countess of, I don't know.
Too many words, even for the Regency era. Yes. That's stretching it, and they love their long titles. Awesome. So I know we talked a little bit about the Christmas book. Any other projects, events, things like that coming up that you want people to know about?
Yes. Actually, okay, so I'll say the title of the Christmas book is called Holidays of Healing. I've changed it like 4 times, but I like my alliterative titles, and it really fits what's going on in the book. So Holidays of Healing. After that, I have one more in this series that I'm planning. I don't have a title for it yet, but it focuses on the final female character that I haven't focused on yet. And her story is it's going to be different because she's a very unique Regency woman. She has like no plans for anything, and it's going to be really fun to just kind of explore what do you do when you're planless in the Regency era. And then after that, I have an idea for, speaking of Pride and Prejudice retellings and modern works, a Pride and Prejudice, modern-day Pride and Prejudice retelling I'd like to do that's also a sports romance, and gender bent and different, and I'm looking forward to it because it'll be fun to kind of come back down from the high language, and then I can ramp back up again into my detective mystery series that I want to do. Or there's also some side characters that I've really enjoyed that kind of dip in and out that I was thinking about focusing on in future series. My brother keeps telling me that my book series is like the Marvel Cinematic Universe of the Regency era because I keep being like, oh, this character could have a book, and this character could have a book. And I'm, like, really into that descriptor of what I'm doing. So I'm just hoping that I can just branch out as much as possible and create a whole web of characters that are interconnected, but they're not always in each other's lives. And so after I'm done with my contemporary romance, we'll see if that's what happens.
I love it. I know you described one of your most recent characters as not having a plan, but that doesn't sound like you. That sounds...
No, I don't.
Yeah.
No, I love my plans. I will say I'm not the best planner. Like, I will have a solid plan in place, and then it'll just fall apart. But when it comes to my passion, and this is definitely my passion, writing these books, I feel like they're pretty solid and set in stone. So look out for more from me.
I can't wait. And your first book, is on my Kindle as we speak, actually, because you won my lottery. So yeah, I'm mid-book. I don't want to talk about it since I don't know the whole thing yet, and I don't want to give away any spoilers, but it's great, and I can't wait to see where it goes. It's also kind of fun to talk to the author of the book that you're currently reading, right? Like, that's just kind of a good time. So having you today is definitely a treat for me as well as all of our viewers, I'm sure. If people want to find you on social media, where's the best way to go?
I think the one I'm most frequently on is Instagram. So you can just follow me at Kristin Wolf Author. That's pretty much my handle for all of my social media. I've tried TikTok. I'm not the best at it. I'm very awkward. And then Facebook, it's pretty much everything you see on Instagram is on Facebook. So you just follow me on Instagram. That's where I am.
All right. And I think that's where we've met, right? I think that's where we've come in contact. So perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Kristin. I've loved learning about you. I've loved learning about your stories and about the Regency era. I think it's just a fun time. And like I said, it's timeless and classic, and I think it's a perfect setting for a story that'll carry over, right?
Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah. Well, have a good day, and to anyone watching, I look forward to seeing you next week with our new author. Take care. Bye.